We'd like to welcome you tonight. This is the March meeting of the Blount County Board of Zoning Appeals. There were some agenda sheets on the front, and if they're gone, you might have to share. You might have to share with your neighbor. The first thing we're going to do is we have an evacuation plan.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
The next item is the roll call. You taking it? Okay. The next item then is the approval of the minutes for our November 1st meeting. As you know, we do not have a December January. So we have a motion to approve it, and we have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, approved. The process, you'll have to excuse us. They're trying to get us into the 1920s with this new computer system. You want us to say yes? I guess we don't do voice votes anymore.
We're done.
Can I go on now? The process is that we have special exceptions, and Thomas will give us a very brief overview of that request. Then we'll ask anyone in the audience that's in favor of that request to come to the podium. When you come forth to speak, we'd like for you to tell us your name, and then there's a pad there for you to sign in. And then we may have some questions or dialogue with you while you're there from the committee. Then we'll give anyone an opportunity who's not in favor of that request to also come and speak. But each of you, when you come to the podium, tell us your name and sign in. Okay? So the first item on the agenda tonight is a request to operate a mother's support home by Rio Revolution Church. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the property subject to this request, 3917 Miser Station Road. The applicant, as mentioned, is Rio Revolution Church. They're seeking approval to operate a residential facility intended to help mothers be reunited with children in the foster care system. The property is approximately 1.7 acres. It's in the R1 zoning district. The existing facility was operated until fairly recently. It was a 16-bed assisted living center. That nursing home was constructed and in operation before we had zoning in the county, so it actually was grandfathered in as an existing non-conforming use. The use that's proposed tonight is an allowed use in the R1 district. Specifically, zoning says a resident facility with special services, treatment, or supervision. As I mentioned, it's an allowed use, but that's only subject to the approval of a special exception by this board. In your materials, you have a detailed narrative that came from the applicants, the proponents of the project. As far as use of the site and the site plan that was submitted, really, from a planning perspective, the scope and scale of it is very similar to that of the facility of the nursing home that was there prior. specifically with the number of staff and residents to be present. Very similar. The applicants have mentioned that there would never be more than 16 people in residence at any time, and there were 16 beds at the nursing home. And similarly, the number of staff would be equivalent. So as far as that goes, the existing parking would be sufficient to accommodate staff and visitors. There's no changes to the site proposed. What you see is what you get, with the exception of some additional fencing that was proposed along the side property lines, privacy fence, no additional lighting. So having said that, there wouldn't be any additional permitting, so to speak, necessary from our department with regards to construction of building, even environmental health, because it's all there already. But they would still need to coordinate and get approval and licensing and all that stuff, whatever is applicable from the state. So with that in mind, the staff has found that the site plan complies with our zoning, and staff ultimately would recommend approval subject to the issuance of any applicable permits. But that's if the board finds, based on evidence and testimony given tonight, that the request would comply with all the special exception provisions found in our zoning regulations. And it's been a little while since we did one of these, so just as a reminder, on page 3 of the staff report, there's a couple of sections that are highlighted there, section F and section G. F are the findings that you'd need to meet. If those findings are met, then the board shall approve the special exception. G is the opposite of that. So these are things that if the board finds any of these things, then you should deny the permit. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Is anyone here in favor of this request? Would you come? Let's start with the first. Anybody in the first row, second row? All right, go ahead.
I'm Pastor Hepperly, pastor of Rio Revolution Church, and I first of all want to say thank you for allowing me to stand and share the vision, the purpose, the goal for this property.
Your name again?
Russell Hepperly is my official
Russell
name.
Hepperly.
Yes, but Pastor Hepperly is what I'm known by in this county by most people.
Okay.
So, just briefly, I want to share, give you just a quick background on why I'm here. Is looking in the community, I've seen a need in the foster care system, and it's detailed and listed in this packet that there's approximately 915 children in the Smoky Mountain region that are currently in the foster care system. Saying that, there's 95 homes, approximately 95 available homes for these children to live. So basically what our goal for this home would be is to provide and assist these mothers who are wanting to get their children back, who've lost their children for whatever reason, who are in the process or beginning the process of getting their children back. We're wanting to help assist them with things like education, training, and of course, detailed out in this packet, you'll see that we have licensed counselors. We'll have someone there on staff 24/7. That, in a nutshell, is what our goal is.
Yeah, I'm not negative at all, just interesting. In the foster care system, I've got one of our family that's caring for foster care, and it's interesting to hear their stories on how it operates, and it's interesting to see what you're wanting to do here. When you're reuniting the mothers with their children, to help mothers be reunited with children in their foster care, in the foster care system, is this basically to get the mothers up to the point that they can get custody back through the state to have their children?
Yes, sir. That's exactly the purpose and the goal of this would be to help those women. Many of them, they have no job, no transportation, no residency, and so our purpose and goal will be to help them through that process. And there's obviously a lot of training and a lot of resources that will be needed. We've been identifying those, as you can see in the packet. We've been identifying the needs, and we've been working toward just being ready if it's approved.
So this is for education of the mothers. It doesn't actually bring the foster kid back in out of foster homes for a period of time to let them live with them.
Yeah.
Or does it do that, or how's that?
Well, the goal is to start the mothers on this path, and they'll be referred to us through places such as DCS, drug court, etc. So we'll take the referrals. There'll be a process of vetting, and because obviously every mother don't need their children back, but after looking at the applications, vetting that process, if we feel like that they are a good candidate, then they would start the program. The program will be laid out in several phases, but one of the last phases would be the mothers reuniting, which it starts with visitation, but again, they need to have a permanent residence, a job, transportation, all those things to provide to the children. So our goal is to lead them through that entire process.
Are there any other homes like this in the area?
Not,
or if they were, I just wonder what the success rate is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. We've done a lot of research. It actually, I think it's going to be something fairly new, but not that I know of.
I noticed you have it here. It's a non-profit, but how do you make it work? Is there grants or something that you get?
Well, that would be great, but initially, our church is going to make the investment, and we have a contract on the land contingent upon obviously this board and a couple other contingencies. This is the last box that needs to be checked, but the church is willing to. The money's there to pay for the property and it be debt free, and to provide the funding for the facility. There's no charge to the women. It's 100% a community effort, and that's now going forward. I'd love to be able to have some programs that help raise funds and resources, but currently the church is taking that financial responsibility to meet that need.
Thomas, is this something like the one that Gil Heinsohn is going to do?
As far as I know, this is uncharted territory. We don't necessarily have any corollary to this one anywhere in the county. His program's a little different. I mean, the biggest difference is women and men. He pretty much, I think, exclusively brings in men, and this would be women. I think.
You talking about True Purpose?
I'm
Are
sorry.
you speaking of True Purpose?
Yes, sir.
Can I say that another difference is this is not a drug rehab. This is not a recovery center. There's not going to be violent felons in this home. It's going to be women that deserve a shot to get their children back, and so.
Yeah, I understand that it's, drugs are maybe involved, but that's not the purpose of it. But
Sure.
So anyway, okay.
Two questions. It may be in this packet, but you provided a pretty in-depth, detailed packet for us, and I can't remember all of it. What is the assumed length of the program for the individual that's in your program? And do you have examples, perhaps in other parts of the country or other areas, communities that you're modeling from, or something that I guess you used to go by, or kind of a boilerplate to work from? No way.
So the length is going to vary depending on the individual. If a mother has already started that process to get her children back, she may be there 6 months. What I would envision is a 12 month process on, for someone that's coming in and just starting, to move forward with getting their children back. But again, I think that's going to vary with every case, just depending on where they're at.
But you're not set to a time limit?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's no charge to the women. There's no, obligation for them to be there, so they could leave at any point. Again, now the model. You asked the question about the model, and so there's obviously a lot of models out there that are doing different things. But as far as a model that's doing this, I'm not familiar with one. Now there's the director of this. She may have some more insight, and I would assume will come up and share some with you here in just a moment.
Do you have any working relationship with the state offices about forestry or forestering that tie you into some of the things they may require? How do you tie all that together?
Mm-hmm. There's been extensive research, and we've been diligently working on this for probably 3 months. And what I would do is I'll refer that to Jill Hepperly in a minute. She's got a lot more of the details. She's been involved more in the research of this, but it's a great question, and we have an answer for you on that.
If you look at true purpose, it is men versus women. But if you look at your typical schedule, Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday, there was no job training. In true purpose, they are required every day to go to a job. And then when they get out in the 12 months it takes them to recover from their habit, they now have a skill that they can go work. So the question to you is, I didn't see here where you're training them to be self-sufficient when they get out. Is that a fair statement or not?
Yeah. It's a good question, but the goal is, that's going to be a primary target that we're aiming for, and we've already identified some employers in the county that's agreed to employ these women.
Okay.
And Subway's one of those employees employers that's agreed to do that. So, but yes, absolutely, because that's one of their before they can get their children back, they have to have a job.
Okay.
That's, and again, there'll be some others, I'm sure, that can elaborate more on that.
Is there any commonality between the teen challenge for women that's in Knoxville other than the children? Is that somewhat similar or not?
Well, the difference again is the recovery, the drug rehab. That's not the intent with this.
Okay.
Again at all. And I'm familiar with Teen Challenge, and we refer people there on a regular basis. But again, it's going to be different from the standpoint that we're not bringing women in that are actively using. Now, obviously, as the gentleman said earlier, many times drugs have been part of that, those bad decisions and bad choices. But that is definitely not the goal.
So they've already gone through the okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
So from what Stan was asking, the children may come in the home later on in the program if they're successful up to that point.
Not to live there.
Oh, the children would not ever come?
Never
Okay.
to live there. But the facility would be used as a resource for them to unite, to meet, because they're required to meet so often. And again, some of those details would be better shared with a couple others in the room. But not to live there. It'll be only mothers and facility manager, which is there 24/7.
And somewhere in the packet, I seem to remember that you said that they will not have automobiles.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
your your responsibility is wherever they have to go or need to go,
Yeah.
they go based on your okay and your transportation.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
I mean,
Yeah.
What kind of security will you have?
Okay, so the security will be, I mean, cameras, obviously, we'll have the security cameras, and then the individual or individuals that's overseeing 24/7, they'll be responsible for, just making sure that everything is safe, but it's, I mean, there's not going to be a security staff there necessarily, but the cameras, the personnel would oversee that's living at the home.
explain to us, you may have covered it before, explain to us again how a mother, if they want to come or somebody tells them to go, and you have some sort of vetting process. Is that something that Rio does, or does the county do that, or
Yeah.
your church, or?
Yes. So the home will do that, and the home, I mean, currently the church is Rio Revolution is purchasing this property, but the goal is setting up a separate nonprofit that and so the it's going to be governed by the elders within the Rio Revolution Church as far as day-to-day activities, which I'm chairman of that board. There's 3 other individuals that serve as elders. And tell me again, did I answer that question? Or I think you asked
the question is how.
Oh, the vetting.
What vetting? What do you do to vet? Say yes or no.
Yes.
I mean, there's some sort of criteria.
Right, yeah.
You set up that says that's a candidate.
Yes.
We don't want that one.
Right. Yeah.
And you're saying those 4 people do that.
Yeah. There's a team, and what I'll do is, again, I'll let another individual answer that has
Okay.
has better information than I do, more the details.
What's a common reason that children end up in foster care, or why are the children removed from their mothers? What's one of the most common reasons for that?
I mean, I don't know that I'm the best to answer it, but I would just give you my opinion. I think many times it's mothers that were maybe exposed to dysfunctional family life themselves, didn't have a good upbringing, and as a result of that, they just don't know how to mother themselves, and as a result, there's bad choices. Sometimes there's whatever, drugs, addiction. And they're incarcerated many times. At that point, they're placed in foster care, and I see that as pastoring a large church in the county. I see a lot of children that are coming from some terrible situations. I had a young boy, 11 years old, that was contemplating suicide just recently. He's in our church. He's in the foster care system, and it's just been one home after another. He's a problem in every school he's been in, every family, from what I hear. I think a lot of that comes from maybe fathers that weren't there, mothers that weren't there, and as a result, it creates an issue with the children. This really is as much about, or probably more about, the children than it is anyone else.
I notice the fathers aren't included in this.
Right.
So how do the fathers tie in with the mothers to try
Yeah.
to get a child back?
Well-
Are they all single mothers?
Right. Yeah. There's obviously fathers that need their children back, but generally speaking, what I hear from these kids is their dream. The kids that are in the foster care, their dream is to eventually be back with their biological mother. I hear that more than anything else. I had I've mentioned this from our church that we are looking at opening this home, and I had a doctor meet with me just last week, and she shared with me. She said, "I like the interest. I want to be heavily involved in this ministry, this home." She proceeded to tell me that she was in foster care from the time she was 3 until 18, and so I just asked her questions. What was that like? I was raised in a stable home. what was that like for you? And obviously she's done well. But she said from 3 until 10 years old, it was great. Strawberry Plains, there was a mother that took her in and loved her and cared for her, very stable. But she said from 10 until 18 that it was one home after another. She experienced sexual abuse, physical abuse, and the list goes on and on. But the point that I wanted to share with you was this, and it was an eye-opener when she sat across the room with tears running down her face, and she said, the dream for these children is to be back with their family. And so, if we can help this young boy that's contemplating suicide, which lives in our county, attends our schools, his mother's getting out of jail in April. And I would love to see that mother in this process, in this program, and reunite with that child. That in a nutshell is just what the goal and the vision for this is.
That'd be the dream. Only question I have, which may not be relevant, is how are you going to get the state's blessings to do something like this and then be willing to recognize any merits that you may have and be willing to work with you.
Yeah.
So I wonder what the state's approach would be.
Yeah, and again, we'll ask Jill Hepperly to share that. Locally, we have a lot of support, in the community, and we have a good relationship with DCS, drug court. There's a lot of referrals there, and there's credibility that hopefully we have built over the last 10 years. But as you go into those other layers and other levels, there obviously needs to be some support there as well. And again, there may be some information shared in just a minute that answers all of this. So
Stanley, sometimes if you get the government involved, they'll cut out the Christian part of it. Sometimes, if you get government funding, they'll take the religious part out.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jill Hepperly. As he was saying, I will be with a yes here today. I'll be the program director, and I'm the one that worked on presenting the packet and hopefully answer a lot of those questions for you all. So I took a lot of notes just based on some of the conversations and questions you all were asking him. I can go through some of that, whichever would be easier, or you all can ask me questions directly, but okay, so first I'll just go through the notes that I have. The home will be kind of a new model. Not new in the sense of reinventing the wheel as far as dealing with issues that women have, because obviously regardless if women are in whatever type of rehabilitation they're in, you're going to deal with the drug addiction, obviously, and alcoholism. So we're going to have to address some of those issues, obviously. But as far as the model goes, we have been, and I've spent a week, we spent 4 days of some of the different models. Mercy Multiplied, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they have been in operation. It's a faith-based organization that works with women from ages 13 to 35 years old and 32 years old, and they've been in existence for I think 36 years. They just celebrated 36 years. So I'm a partner with that particular ministry, and they have homes all over the United States and in other countries. And so their success rate is right at 93% for transitional care for the women that come out of the program. And that's, again, I'm a partner with them, registered through their Freedom Advocacy program. So I have them like on speed dial as far as like having mentors and people to help me develop this program. There's another program, Courthouse, and it's in Chattanooga, and they have different arms of their ministry, but one in particular is and the name of it's leaving me right now, but I was recommended to go there and visit, and upon a yes here today, we're going to go and visit Courthouse. And they actually have one arm of their facility is where they work with moms, a family way, I think it's the name of that arm of the program. But anyway, it's definitely online. You can look it up in Chattanooga. But they have a residential. They have like an apartment complex there, where these moms eventually actually go from treatment into a residential program, and they actually house the children with the moms. So they're working with these moms, training them in life. On premises. Now, obviously, that's not what we're going to do at this stage. You know, this is phase one of us building a brand new model and just taking it slow. But who's to say eventually that we couldn't follow them? But we do plan on partnering with them and allowing them to actually help us. Jason Goodman, he's the director of the Metro Drug Coalition out of Knoxville, and he also works directly with Dr. Monty Burks, which is the director of the Tennessee State Substance Abuse and Mental Health for Tennessee. My time is totally up. And so we're going to be partnering with him as well, and he has numerous resources where the needs are there to help us as well. So do you want me, my time is completely out, so do you want me to keep going and answer some of these questions, or y'all want to ask directly? Okay. Oh, I'm not being timed. Oh, okay. So I can just talk on. Y'all might have to make me stop. But anyway, so those are the two models that we're going to follow. As far as time frame, the program will be 12 to 18 month program on paper. However, reunification will be the goal, not graduation. That's another major difference in our program versus any of the ones that you're used to seeing. Most of treatment facilities, when you go in, they say you complete a certain amount of months and you graduate. Well, our goal is going to be reunification, and then you leave with your, and into a proper housing where we will help the women. We're prepared through donors and different things and through the church to help these women. We're not naive enough to think that they have transportation, that they have their driver's license, that they have proper housing. So we know once we start the process that we're going to have to follow it, all the way through. And so the time frame would depend each individual mom. It would be situational. So our goal would be 12 to 18 months to have the reunification and have them out on their own, either working with, I think it's Families First that helps with Section 8 housing as well. We would work with them. Let's see, foster care, DCS, the tie to the relationship. I think that, yes, sir, you had asked that. So currently, right now, I have a pretty good relationship with. I'm a certified foster parent. My husband and myself now we're foster parents now, and so we have a tie. And I have worked for probably well over 10 years volunteering for the foster care system for children that are aging out of foster care, providing job skills training and education to those kids, just practical life skills. So I did that when I had during my career. So I have the relationships with the foster care already. And as far as DCS, we work right now directly with a lot of the DCS workers through our children's program. We have a children's recovery program at our church now that we operate every Tuesday night, where we will have anywhere from 60 to 80 children there. And we have DCS workers on our volunteer team there. And so we have just existing relationships through continuing to be in the community for such a long period of time. So that's the tie. That's how we'll tie that in. True purpose as far as job training and as far as being and mirror that model. To a degree we will, and what's not in the packet is some pending details based on program structure. And on one part is it to be determined. So our original plan was to have these moms come in and do an extensive outpatient program, or inpatient, but what that would look like is the mom would actually come into the home and not work for a period of 2 to 3 months in order for us to evaluate them based on some extensive trauma counseling. So our director of counseling is here as well, and she has a master's degree from Johnson Bible College, and she also has her own private practice. She will be the director over the program, building that. So we have licensed therapists that would work with these moms, and then we would build their treatment plan and their reunification plan based on permanency and all that, situational as well. So for instance, one mom may come in and she may have some deep trauma based on whatever, it may take her, a couple months to get adjusted to be able to go out into the workplace. The next mom may be a little bit further along in her ability to deal with life and stuff. We could put her immediately to work. So I have a very close relationship with the district manager of the subways in Blount County, and her and the owner has already given me a verbal agreement that they would work with us and work with the women's schedules to work part-time. These women will have to provide some type of income for themselves because they will have child support that they'll have to pay, they'll have fines and court costs. And so our responsibility is to teach them how to pay those bills on their own. They're not going to pay us, for instance. If they did and we ended up working those details out, it would go into some type of savings for them. So there definitely would be job skills training. I think that may have just been a part that I missed in the packet. So that will definitely be in there. Teen Challenge being similar to them, I think depending on how you look at it, it will be kind of similar to Teen Challenge. Teen Challenge is a very reputable program, and I work with them, have very close relationships with intake directors there, and so we probably would model them to a degree, except the component of helping these moms get their kids back. So I have a lot of people that I work with that have graduated Teen Challenge, and that's been one of their struggles. Hence the reason this program is so needed, because I've worked in recovery for many years and moms are getting better, but by the time they get everything that they need, whether it be through the justice system, rightfully so, and or placement through the foster care system, there's so much to do. And so the odds are really stacked against them in a 15 to 22 month time frame, which is the time frame before termination begins. So they have 15 to 22 months before parental rights that process can start. We would not have children in the home because that requires different licensing to have minors in the home. However, we would, through our director of counseling, the counseling side of this, we would actually provide visitations, which would be supervised visitations. So the state of Tennessee and any DCS worker and or foster care parent or the agency itself will tell you that they're in desperate need for places to provide supervised visitation. We would serve as that. And so that's one thing that we would use and do that. As far as fathers in the home, just to piggyback to that particular thing, there wouldn't be any fathers. However, we will provide counseling because through DCS and the permanency plans, if a mom is going to take her child back into a specific environment, we need to know what kind of environment that is. And so if there's a father involved, then he will be required to come in, and as far as part of the program, as he would be voluntarily, obviously, but we would offer him free counseling because it's going to be really about the child. And so we want to make sure that we're not helping put a child back in a dysfunctional family. I mean, so that would be a complete contradiction of the program. So we would offer family counseling. Maybe it may be grandparents, it may be dads, moms, siblings, whoever's going to be in the circle of influence. We will provide that counseling for them. As far as working with DCS, there are very specific requirements that these parents have to do. So what we're really going to do at the end of the day is be an advocate for mom. So, and we're going to provide those things, and then also hopefully offer a service that's very much needed in our foster care system and our Department of Children's Services, the system there. So our counseling model will cover all that as far as dads and stuff. Let's see, transportation in place. We have vans that we would have on premises. We would also use the services of ETHRA. And so if any of the moms, based on their treatment plan and their individual counseling, wherever they're at, would be allowed to leave the property and go to work or come back. And obviously that would depend on what phase of the program that she was in, and or if, her treatment plan and the treatment team said that she was okay to leave. Let's see. I think I covered that. Intake process. I think that was a big one, and that's going to be a huge part of the program. You were talking about vetting the moms as they come in. Huge part. Probably one of the most important pieces of building this program will be intake process. Mercy Ministries, which is the ministries that we follow, they have a very strict intake process. So upon intake, we decide that a mom comes in. We will not be an emergency placement. So for instance, if we have a mom that comes up and she comes to church and she's an addict and she's an active drug user and she says, well, I want to go to treatment. That's not the moms that we're going to bring in there. What I'm going to do with that mom is the same thing I'm doing with them right now, currently in my job, is I'm going to place them in a, whether it be secular, if they have insurance, and or faith-based, I'm going to take that mom and evaluate her situation through an assessment that I use, and then I'm going to place her in the best drug treatment facility that there is. Once she completes that, she would be eligible at that point to come into the program. Even if she comes into the program after she's left a drug rehab, so that would be the first step for that mom, is to work on her treatment and get clean. We would then still immediately do a background check. We would do drug testing. We would get all psych evaluations, all doctor medical records. We would know everything about her before, and then the treatment team would make a decision based on the overall good of every resident there. So it would be individual. I think that's all the notes I have.
During the time that they're there, if they were there, or do you do random drug testing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's yes, sir. Absolutely, daily.
You may,
Daily? Did you say daily?
Well, what it's called is we would there's a system in place where it's referred to as kind of like pulling colors. So every day we would pull a color. If that woman had that specific color, she would be drug tested. So it's just a system built around random drug testing. Yeah.
you may have said that you'll have no more than 16 women there living.
Yes, sir.
And they're supervised at all times?
Yes, sir. We would have a weekday staff, night staff, and weekend staff. Yes, sir. And or we may end up with a 24/7 live-in.
Can they come and go as they want,
The residents or the staff?
the residents?
No, sir. They won't be able to come and go as they want. No.
You have a curfew?
Yes, they would definitely have a curfew. Yeah, we'll keep their schedule very tight. It would be a very strict program. It's not going to be the thing that I don't think a lot of these women would even. A lot of them are really going to have to want their kids back to really come in, because it's going to be a very strict program. We're going to monitor pretty much their daily lives, because if we're going to take donors' money and spend it on these women and helping them, we want to make sure that they're doing their part. And so we're going to make sure that they're in a pretty strict program. If they've lost their kids, then they need structure. And we want to make sure that we're not helping to put a child back into a dangerous situation.
Under what circumstances would you determine that they wasn't a viable person to stay there?
Violent, regardless, any type of sex crime would not be admitted. Violent criminals, probably repeated. I guess it would, and again, every woman would be situational. You know.
Well, once they got in the home, what would determine whether they could stay the 12 to 16 months, or if they got in and they just didn't, you're not fit, and leave?
Yeah, well, usually a failed drug test would be, there would be definitely some non-negotiables.
So if they fail a drug test, they're out?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Irregardless.
Well, again, everything is situational, but for the most part, we have to make sure that we're making decisions that are best for the overall good of every resident. So if someone's sneaking drugs into the program and there's 16 other residents, that could actually, a mother might lose her child because of somebody's negligence. So to me, I think that would be probably a non-negotiable. Yeah.
Well, the routine said lights out at 10:30.
That's a little late for me, I said, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm 8 o'clock, but whatever. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone here opposed to this request? Any other comments from you guys? Are you ready for a recommendation?
You know, I'm all for anything that help the foster kids. I'm more worried about the foster kids than the parents, really, because the kids are the ones that are suffering. And it doesn't make any difference whether we have it or not, but it would be interesting just for information, because it's an important deal to if one could get to the Department of Human Services or somebody like that, to hear their take on it. But I'm not gonna make it a stipulation, but it's just for an interest deal.
I think one of the things that says a lot about a community and an organization, and when they come forth with this type of plan that's well thought out, it's probably one of the better plans we've ever seen brought in here. Again, it says a lot about our community when we start taking care of one another. So, having said that, in 2 seconds, I will say that I move a motion that we accept and grant this variance.
Your second.
I'll second.
Got to push the button.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, since you've got the motion on the table, I would, if the board is so inclined, just keep in mind that a special exception is tied to the property, not to the applicants. So if there are any particular things that you think are important that get tied to this special exception, things like, for example, the number of people. Okay, we know it's a 16-bed facility. They have proposed 16 people. If you are comfortable with 16, but maybe not 17, I would recommend putting a condition in there that it's limited to X number of people. If you're comfortable with lights out at 10:30, for example, but maybe not 11, you may want to put a condition in there that lights out are at 10:30. Any of those sorts of things that give you the comfort to be able to approve it and make sure that it's not injurious to the neighborhood or any of those sorts of things, you certainly can do that. Or if you think it's fine as is, you certainly can do that as well. I just wanted, if you wanted to add any conditions, the time to do it would be in the motion.
One of the things I forgot to put in there, Thomas, was this is subject to the statement, no new construction is proposed through the facility would be though the facility would be subject to review and approval by all applicable state and county agencies. And I would add in there, gentlemen, that I would also say 16 people is a maximum, the lights out no later than 10:30.
Thank you.
Does your sitting there cover this particular site?
Well, this is the only one we're talking about right now.
No, but they couldn't move it to the other site.
Oh, no, it's for this site. For this.
Does his sentence cover that?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think I know
they
where you're
couldn't
going.
go to another one.
You basically are summarizing the last part there that is, you're going with staff's recommendation on the site plan. You all are finding that it meets section 11.5F and subject to all permits that are necessary. No more than 16 residents, 10:30 lights out.
Okay. You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
You guys okay with the changes he made? Anything else, Thomas? Marlene? Motion is approved. The second item on the agenda tonight is the storage facility at the Old Glory Road. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all are welcome to stay if you want, or if you want to go, you can't. Let's give them just a second to clear out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this special exception, as you mentioned, 235 South Old Glory Road. The property is zoned commercial. The site was formerly used for student training and logistics, specifically the Vanquish Worldwide. Those operations have now moved to Knoxville, I believe, and so it's sitting there kind of empty at the moment. So since it is in the commercial zoning district, the applicant is proposing doing storage, turning it into a storage facility. And it's kind of an interesting idea. They want to use shipping containers for storage. So since this is in the commercial zoning district, and this has come up several times, in our zoning regulations, storage isn't specifically allowed anywhere. However, the commercial zoning district allows for other commercial uses by special exception. So that's why it's before you all here tonight. So it gives you some discretion over whether or not this use is appropriate for this location. That said, there's no construction involved with this project either. I've checked with the building official. Like I said, this is a sort of uncharted territory as far as shipping containers are concerned. But by building code, shipping containers aren't buildings. So that takes a whole lot of our zoning regulations kind of out of the loop. What we do have to look at as far as the site plan, and the site plan that has been submitted does meet our specific things that we can look at as far as zoning, specifically setbacks. Setbacks are okay. They're being situated outside of that. No changes to the building. The fencing's already there. No new construction. No additional impervious area. Most of the site is concrete already anyway. So that said, staff ultimately would recommend approval if you all think that it's an appropriate use there, and that for example, the infrastructure is sufficient to handle that there. I did speak with the highway superintendent about this last week to see if he had any specific concerns on the roadway, whether or not this type of use would generate a lot of traffic or things for them to be concerned about. And he had no specific concerns on it. In fact, he believed that once they're all there and set up, that the traffic coming to this would actually be less than it was when the trucks were coming in and out all the time. So just for whatever that's worth. Again, I'd point you to the findings that we have to look at. One condition I would probably recommend on this one, again, we do actually have to they'll need building permits for this, even though they're not buildings, because the building official will have to make sure that they're secured appropriately. So I think it depends on what their structural engineer or architect comes up with, but they'll have to demonstrate that they meet building code as far as them being secured. It may be that they don't need anything. So I would recommend that it's subject to issuance of all permits that we need. I thought there was one other one that I was, sorry. Oh, a replat. Thank you. It is 2 separate tracts of land currently, and has been, frankly, it should have been replatted a long time ago, but since where this is being set up, these would be crossing property lines, and so unless we want to recognize setback lines on that other parcel, I think the easiest thing to do would be for them just to replat it. So take the 2 tracts, make it into one. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone here in favor of this request?
My name is Derek Jones, and
So is that Terry Jones?
Derek.
Derek
Yes,
Jones?
sir. And I am with Sterling Engineering, and I'm the engineer on the job. I guess primarily what I'll do is answer any questions that you have. I think, as Thomas said, this site initially was primarily had trucks on it, so trailers were there pretty regularly anyway. This is it's an idea that I think come out of some other places are starting to utilize these where you don't have buildings constructed per se with lighting, and this would be more an example would be you see people rent these pods when they're doing work at their house. You know, they may rent a pod and put outside that they can use to store things in. That's a similar concept to this. The number of units he's got shown on here is obviously just to see how many would fit. It would be a maximum number, but you know, initially his thought is he brings 10 in, you know, 10 or so at a time. What he's mentioned to me is he'd paint them all the same color to where they all were, you know, you just didn't have crazy shipping container labels out there. The site's secure already, so there would be gate cards for people to get in. And that's about it. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Are they gonna be painted all the same color, or are they gonna be different?
My understanding in talking with Eric, the owner, is that he was going to paint them all the same color, just where they all look the same, and they'll all be new containers. He's not buying old beat up country, you know, containers.
Are these containers what's the size of them going to be? 40 footers and 20 footers?
20 feet.
Are they open only on the end, or they have doors on the side, or what?
Open on the end. Just open on the end.
And are they 40 footers? So
Yes.
Who's a typical client you rent to?
Anybody. You know, I think it would be anybody who's got something to store that they don't need climate control storage for. You know, a lot of people will have. I honestly, I don't know what people will put in.
So, and all of them be 40 footers?
Yes, sir. They're all shown as 40s.
Well, Thomas, how's this differ from a regular mini storage warehouse?
Again, I'm not going to say it's a loophole, but it's a difference in codes as far as the definition. These are not buildings.
So what makes it easier to get through zoning? If I had 5 acres of land, I want to set a bunch of buildings in there. All I got to do is set them in, come in and say I want to put some buildings on it or something.
You have to come before this board and you wouldn't be able to vote on it.
Yeah, but you don't have to do no paving or nothing like like if
the site is already completely paved.
Okay, so like if you're going to build a whole new set of storage buildings, you eliminate all the building codes and all this and that. You just simply set a building.
You would still have to come before this body, and it would be a special exception, but they're not buildings, so building codes don't apply. And our zoning regulations that specifically say buildings, we can't apply those either.
You're not going back and try to change this, are you?
I don't change the codes. I don't make the codes.
Okay.
And one thing that I do want to note, and kind of in that conversation too, is, you know, we're really going through the same process that we would go through if we were doing traditional storage buildings. I mean, either way, we come before you guys. You know, I did, you know, in the site plan I did treat the buildings as if, or the storage containers, I'll say, as if they were buildings in terms of setbacks and all of the other things that we would do. The concrete that was put down was obviously put down for tractor trailers. So, you know, you've got 12 inches thick of concrete there. So, you know, there wouldn't be any problem with any kind of, you know, it's not like it's thin pavement.
Derek, my question is the way that that this site plan appears, it shows a significant number of those containers under that power line right away. Is that permitted?
Yeah, we'll have to get TVA approval to do those under the right of way.
So this is just a general site plan?
Yeah, TVA will have to sign off. They'll have to give a letter of no opposition to those. You know, he wouldn't, obviously, because they're not foundation buildings, they're portable. You know, they typically wouldn't have a problem with that, but it'll have to go through them.
Okay.
And if I can add, I asked Eric to give us a best case or worst case, wherever you lean. scenario here. So that he has put the max possible that I think within reason, so that you all could evaluate it on, again, best case or worst case scenario, however you're looking at it. It may be that we never get that many.
Yeah, those would be the last ones that they would install, I would think, would be the ones under the TPA.
I was just looking for clarification on that.
Are these trailers for tractor trailers or ocean containers?
Shipping containers. So
Shipping
I
containers.
guess they could probably be either, honestly, if you were doing some type of intermodal type thing. But I think shipping containers for boats would be what I would think they would primarily be.
And they load them on the wheels and trains, so it's not just a trailers to wheels taking care off of it.
Right. Yeah, there wouldn't be any wheels on these.
If you look at the space before these came and they had a hard rain, the whole place would drain. Now, if you have a hard rain, the rain has to go through slots because it can't go through underneath your container, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the container has to be up a few inches so that it doesn't flood the floor of the container. How high is the container above the concrete pad?
That's on.
I don't know the exact dimension, but I know the containers, purely based on the way that they're shipped, much because of water in the ocean or wherever they're shipped, they're set to where the floor is several inches above the bottom of the container anyway. I don't know that exact dimension, but I would suspect 4 to 6 inches.
But
It's 8 to 10 inches in
is there a ramp if somebody wants to drive a lawnmower in there, or they have to provide their own ramp?
Yeah, I would suspect they would have to provide their own ramp.
So the water runoff is going to be no more than it is today, because whatever rains today on that concrete goes somewhere at
That's
some
correct.
rate. And with these here, it's going to be no more than that. I mean, so this doesn't increase the water runoff rate.
And that's one of, it's a sort of an interesting site because of that. You all have to keep in mind, you look at everything on its own merits, right? And so this is an unusual site because it's concrete wall to wall. Derek can tell you wouldn't be able to do that today.
No.
You wouldn't be able to have a site like this that's complete impervious surface, and there'd be a lot more civil engineering concerns on a new site.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
You have to click. I think.
Based on section 11 ordinance. And also on condition that it meets all of the applicable building codes and all the permitting processes of the various authorities involved. What?
Motion's approved.
It's a little late now.
Okay, anything else for tonight, folks?
Sure. Think good.
Anything else for tonight? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We can't say aye anymore?
We'll have to
You're adjourned? We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.